There weren't any political parties in the sense that we have today, but the conservative, anti-reform-minded senators were commonly referred to as the optimates, roughly translated to mean supportive of the best ones. Take that as a euphemism for those born to rule. Progressives, meanwhile, were generally referred to as populares, those supportive of the people, perhaps loosely akin to modern Democrats in the US, Labour in Britain, or a kind of populist proto-socialist fusion. It's an oversimplification to be sure, but the idea of conservative versus progressive will have to do for the purposes of introduction to Roman politics. Some years earlier, coups and civil war had erupted in Rome owing to the harsh consulship of Sulla, who twice illegally marched his troops into the city to the horror of its inhabitants to suppress the populares uprisings of his co-consul Marius, and he soon had himself appointed as dictator, which is the Latin word for one who gives orders. This was a temporary form of supreme rulership only rarely granted by the Senate, and only then for short periods during emergencies. Wielding this unchallenged power, he promptly capitalized on it by having a large number of his opponents in the Senate executed and their properties forfeited. He then went on to pass laws severely curtailing the power of the people's tribunes, while simultaneously cementing greater authority within the conservative aspect of the Senate. The optimates and their champion Sulla, despite their heightened power, were seemingly indifferent to the rising anger of the increasingly disenfranchised populace. The purges and civil war had drained the republic's coffers, and the subsequent taxation burden caused many farmers in the provinces to bankrupt and abandon their holdings to move to the city, swelling the slums of the urban homeless, which would quickly rise into mobs when provoked. Nevertheless, having exterminated all opposition and returned hard-line conservative power to the Senate, Sulla, astonishingly, resigned his dictatorship at the expiration of his term and retired to the countryside in 79 BC, dying of alcohol, womanizing and overindulgence-related illnesses just 1 year later, as was befitting of a proper Roman. During his purges, Caesar, who was closely connected to Sulla's opponents through his father's family, had all his property confiscated, losing his social standing and political appointments in the process, and was only spared execution by the intercession of his mother's family and the city's religious leaders. Hastily leaving to get off Sulla's radar, Caesar joined the army, serving with distinction, and only returned back to Rome, totally broke, at the age of 38 years old,